Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris is set to select a running mate in the 2024 race for the White House. The Middle East is on edge as the United States, its Western allies, and Jordan tell their citizens to leave Lebanon. And the annual Washington Mandela Summit has concluded, but some fellows faced culture shock during their visit to the United States. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. United States Vice President Kamala Harris is narrowing down her choices for a running mate in the 2024 presidential race. Her new vice presidential pick is expected to join her at a campaign event Tuesday in Pennsylvania. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump took to social media to make his case on why there should be a change in venue and date for the next presidential debate. VOA's Veronica Balderas Iglesias has the details.
Anticipation is growing about who U.S. Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris will choose as her running mate in the 2024 presidential race. Top contenders include Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and U.S. Senator Mark Kelly. Duke University political scientist John Green told VOA via Skype that the VP selection will be the U.S. voters' first impression of Harris's judgment as the potential 47th president of the United States.
It signals a lot about her and her priorities and her approach to governing in terms of who she would put in her stead if for any reason she were not able to discharge her duties as president.
Harris plans to tour several battleground states with her VP pick, starting Tuesday in Pennsylvania. The Trump campaign is also expected to continue investing time and energy in states that could decide the outcome of the November general election.
This time around, states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, are both relatively large and seen as being particularly competitive.
As the U.S. electorate awaits the Democratic VP announcement, there's also renewed interest on whether Harris will debate her political rival and former President Donald Trump. The Republican presidential nominee argues that now that President Joe Biden dropped out of the race, the original presidential debate, scheduled for September 10th on ABC, should be replaced by a Fox News 1 in Pennsylvania in early September with a live audience. On Saturday, Trump wrote on his Truth social media platform, quote, "I'll see her on September 4th, or I won't see her at all." The Harris campaign has been adamant they should stick to the original debate plan.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say it to my face.
Whether Harris and Trump will come face to face remains to be seen. But former President Trump will have a new opportunity to make his case against Harris and her new running mate when he rallies in Bozeman, Montana on August 9th. Veronica Balderas Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
All eyes are on the Middle East as the United States, its Western partners, and Jordan are telling their citizens to leave Lebanon. This as Washington deploys additional military to the region in posturing the White House describes as defensive amid fears of an Iranian military strike on Israel. VOA's Arashar Basadi reports.
U.S. warships and fighter jets are on their way to the Middle East to deter an all-out war and in, quote, defense of Israel.
The Pentagon is moving significant assets to the region to prepare for what may be another need to defend Israel from an attack, while simultaneously we are working very hard to de-escalate this situation diplomatically, because we do not believe that a regional war is in anyone's interest in the current moment, and that is something that we've been trying to avoid since October 7th.
The show of military might comes amid rapidly soaring tensions in the region following the assassination of top Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran last week, and a rocket strike on Israel's Golan Heights area that killed a dozen children on a soccer field days before. Israel blamed the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah for the attack and struck what it said were Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. A Hezbollah commander was killed. Both Hamas and Hezbollah are backed by Iran.
Hezbollah's ongoing aggression and brutal attacks are dragging the people of Lebanon and the entire Middle East into a wider escalation. While we prefer to resolve hostilities without a wider war, the IDF is fully prepared for any scenario.
But in Beirut, on footage carried by the Hezbollah-controlled Al-Manar TV, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah denied the group's involvement.
We categorically deny our responsibility of this incident, and we have the courage to take responsibility if we bomb a place, even by mistake.
Despite the finger-pointing, there are real-world consequences for people living in the region. Israel's Iron Dome air defense system triggered over the weekend to intercept attacks from across the border in Lebanon. And with military reinforcements on the way, the State Department issued a do not travel advisory for Lebanon, encouraging U.S. citizens to depart. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
Mali's military government in power since the 2020 coup has announced an immediate cessation of diplomatic relations with Ukraine, according to a statement read on national television by its spokesman, Colonel Abdullahi Maiga. Mali accuses a senior Ukrainian official of having admitted Kiev's role in a heavy defeat suffered by Malian troops in July, with dozens of casualties, which also included members of the Russian mercenary group Wagner, and which was blamed on separatists and jihadists. Mali's military leaders are making it
After a careful examination of the situation, the transitional government of the Republic of Mali stresses that the actions taken by the Ukrainian authorities violate the sovereignty of Mali, go beyond the framework of foreign interference, which is already in itself reprehensible, and constitute a marked aggression against Mali and support for international terrorism in the flagrant violation of international law, including the Charter of the United Nations.
Mali's military leaders are making it a priority to retake all of the country from separatist and jihadist forces linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Under Colonel Assimi Goïta, the junta broke off its traditional alliance with former colonial ruler France and has turned toward Russia. For more perspective on Mali-Ukraine relations, I'm joined by my colleague Mudibo Dembele, managing editor for VOA's Bambara service. Mudibo, what more do we know about this diplomatic fallout between Mali and Ukraine?
Thank you very much, Here. What we can say, the main reason, as you say earlier, is the alleged involvement of a Ukrainian official, the spokesman for the Ukraine Intelligence Agency, and also the Ukrainian ambassador in Senegal, alleged support on Facebook about the killing which happened on July 24, during which Malian soldier and also some Russian troops got killed by the rebel groups and their allies terrorist group. And in response to that, the Mali government has decided to cut off the diplomatic ties with Ukraine.
But what exactly was contained in the initial agreement between Mali, Russia, and Ukraine?
You know, legally, since we don't know, because of the confidential nature of the agreement between the two countries, however, what we can say, usually most of those agreements, you know, is about either the military cooperation and also the regional stability, the economic interest, and based on, look at those aspects, either Ukraine or Russia, all those countries are really helping Mali how they can really acquire the regional stability. And because of this incident, we may expect that it may have a lot of consequences, especially in terms of stability, how Mali is going to be able to do that without those international partners. And also, it could get Mali more closer to Russia than the West. That's also one of the fallout.
Well, now, what do the Malians say about Colonel Assimi Goita's performance since, he ditched the government that was elected by the people and decided now he is going to be the leader?
And lately, I think if we turn back to the latest report that was made by the Frederick Foundation, Herbert, they made a survey during which, I'm talking about that report, Assimi is very popular in Mali, even though the West is portraying him as like a dictator or someone who's not doing election. And based on the report we are getting also from our stringers, Malian, to be honest with you, love what they are doing. And I'm not saying that, I'm just reporting what we learned from our stringer on the ground.
So what can we attach to that? If he is popular, among the Malian people, what has he done that has changed the way the government was prior to him taking over?
Remember, Assimi, when the civilian government was gone, he was appointed as this the head of this country by the Constitutional Court. And after that, he organized the inter-Malian dialogue, which is how they can, because after pulling out from the peace agreement of the North, and all those, the main goal is how they can really strengthen the peace, especially in the country, in the northern part of the country. If the ongoing government is able to acquire that goal, I think the chance for him to be more popular could be done.
So how is the economy? Because usually that's the big question.
The economy right now, things are really tough. And for instance, when you talk about power outage, that's an ongoing issue in Mali, and especially in the raining season right now in Mali. But the government is trying to do what it can. According to the last report we got from our stringer, there used to be almost 24 hours without power outage in Mali. But right now it's almost 10 hours a day, which is an improvement compared to what they used to have.
Modibo, many thanks for your insight into what's happening in Mali. Modibo Debele is the managing editor for VOA's Bambara service and a Malian native. An Al-Shabaab suicide bomber and gunmen attacked a busy beach in the Somali capital Mogadishu over the weekend, killing at least 32 people and wounding scores more in one of the deadliest strikes in months. Al-Qaeda-linked jihadists have waged an insurgency against the internationally backed federal government for more than 18 years. For more insight, VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke to Ruth Namatovu, a Peace and Security Research Fellow at the Institute of Research and Policy Integration for Africa at Northern Illinois University.
The bombing that happened in Somalia is something that happens all the time. And you see that the terrorists actually use the soft targets, which are the population. They use these sort of attacks because they're fighting an asymmetrical warfare. Fighting an asymmetrical warfare is when you fight an enemy that you can't see. So that's the dilemma of the African Union forces that are deployed there. The other problem is that these Al-Shabaab militants are melted within the population. So it's very hard to know where they are or where they live. And you find homes in Somalia that one home has somebody who is linked to Al-Shabaab just because they want to feel protected. So you don't know when or who is giving intelligence to Al-Shabaab that this is happening here and this is going on here, or this group of people is meeting here, because I saw their claims saying that in the place, the beach where they bombed, they know there were ministers, there were political figures in that area at that beach. So they have a very good sense of intelligence and how to network within the community that the Somali police or the Somali military and even the African Union lack that kind of intelligence.
You've been on the ground in Somalia a couple of times. You were around. From your assessment, being in Somalia, do you think the Somali government has what it takes to be able to fight Al-Shabaab and maybe win and bring about a semblance of peace and stability in Somalia?
The Somali forces are not ready to take over the security responsibilities of their country. And I don't think they are going to be ready in the next few months up to December, or whether they are going to be ready even when they come up with the multinational force now that they are planning.
A lot of people have said that maybe Al-Shabaab was kicked out of the major cities, especially Mogadishu. They are now out in the countryside, but we keep seeing these, these attacks. How big is that threat?
The threat is real, and I think Somalia's biggest threat remains to be Al-Shabaab. Some scholars would argue that it is the political structure of Somalia that has actually hindered the peace in this region, which is also a factor, but on the face of it, I think it's Al-Shabaab. Now, the problem why we have Al-Shabaab and Al-Shabaab is able to do this kind of cowardly attacks is because Al-Shabaab melts within the population and works with the very population. Al-Shabaab nearly has a stake in every productive company in Somalia. Remember, they collect more revenue than the government itself. Members of parliament have a certain amount of money that they have to pay to Al-Shabaab if they want to keep their position. Businesses must pay some money to Al-Shabaab if they don't want to be bombed and they want to remain in existence. So Al-Shabaab is working even within the government itself, the parliament, the communities, everything that involves the community in Somalia, Al-Shabaab is there.
Ruth Namatovu is a Peace and Security Research Fellow at the Institute of Research and Policy Integration for Africa at Northern Illinois University. Protests against the soaring cost of living in Nigeria were weaker on Monday as few people turned out in major cities after security forces used lethal force to quell demonstrations. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu had called for a suspension of protests, saying this would create an opportunity for dialogue. In his first public comment since frustrated citizens took to the streets last week. Timothy Obiezu speaks to people in Abuja to get their reactions.
There is no any sense in the president's speech because what the masses are demanding for, there was no answer for it. So for me, as a person, I don't see any result in the president's speech yesterday.
They have pushed Nigeria to the wall, and anybody at home is feeling it. That if they can tell you a mudu of Gary can go 1,300, 1,004. Can you believe? Gary, you come and talk of beans. Beans is about 2,000 to 3,000 plus. Except somebody who does not have family.
The president has addressed the nation as the father of the nation. I think we should give him that benefit of the doubt. It's really not easy. Times are very hard in Nigeria today. People are really suffering. But I think the president is on the right path. We ought to give him some little more time.
Across the continent in Kenya, mostly members of Generation Z have protested nationwide for 2 months. Their demonstrations are organized largely on social media with no notable leaders. It has grown into a movement that calls for good governance. So who are these Gen Zs leading the protests that polls show have over 80% support from Kenyans? Juma Majangar explains from Nairobi.
These have been the scenes in the streets of Nairobi and across Kenya for the past 2 months. Young people leading demonstrations to call for good governance. Government data show about 3/4 of Kenya's population is under 35 years old. Experts say for years, Kenya's economic and political structures have not been responsive to young people.
And what they said is they realized there is no one to speak for them.
Most of the protesters are part of Generation Z, born in 1997 and later. Their protests were sparked by a contentious tax bill that President William Ruto later withdrew. But protesters say the president has to step down as well. 26-year-old Kasmuel Makore has been in the forefront of the protests. He says the Ruto must go call is not an attack on Ruto personally, but a call for good governance.
It is the Ruto-isms, the isms that have been associated with him, the corruption that bedevils his government, the cronyism, the sheer incompetence of the people who surround him in government, the sheer number of unconstitutional offices that we've had to endure in his tenure, the extrajudicial killings, the excesses of the police, in a country where we're living, where we have a police force and not a police service. Ruto must go is a clarion call to a better Kenya.
Ruto dissolved his cabinet on July 11 and reconstituted it to include members of the main opposition party. Speaking last week in Mombasa County, he pledged to tackle the main accusation against his government.
I will mobilize resources that are available. I will mobilize every resource that is available to deal with the challenge of corruption.
But critics say the new cabinet, which has half of the fired ministers back in office, does not inspire hope. Recent polls show over 80% of Kenyans support the youth-led protests. Wanjiru says this is because the protesters spoke to the feelings of many Kenyans.
Kenya is in a bad situation. Our political leaders do not reflect our aspirations. And the young people have come and spoken to our aspirations. So really what we are seeing by these shop owners and business owners and parents who are supporting their young people is these young people have captured our aspiration.
Analysts say to bring about real change, the youth-led movement has to organize politically and collaborate with other progressive political groups. Protester Leon Mushiri agrees.
It's high time the young people come together and say that we have identified certain individuals from all over the 47 counties, and we have come together and we're saying that this is the opportunity for us also to go on the ballot come 2027.
President Ruto says the government will not allow further protests in the country, saying, quote, enough is enough. But activists note the right to peaceful protest is guaranteed in the Constitution, and protesters like Mark Ore are defiant. They are planning a major demonstration in Nairobi on August 8th. Juma Majanga, VOA News, Nairobi.
Let us know what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, Mandela Washington Fellows face culture shock in the United States. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
In other news, M23 rebels seized a border town in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo Sunday without a fight, according to local sources. The capture came the same day a ceasefire between Congo and neighboring Rwanda was expected to begin. Ishasha, on the border with Uganda, is the latest town to fall to the majority ethnic Tutsi movement, allegedly backed by Rwanda. The Bangladesh Prime Minister's 15-year rule is over on Monday. Sheikh Hasina has resigned her post and fled the country after weeks of protests against a quota system for government jobs descended into violence. Thousands of demonstrators stormed the official Prime Minister's residence Monday, a day after nearly 100 died in the unrest. And Nigerian women made Olympic history by becoming the first African team, male or female, to reach the Olympic quarterfinals in basketball when it beat Canada 79-70 on Sunday. Their quarterfinal opponent is the United States, which is going for an 8th consecutive gold medal. The annual Washington Mandela Summit has concluded here in Washington. As the fellows head back to the continent, VOA's Anthony Labruto spoke to participants about some of the culture shocks they had during their program.
So this is my second time to come to the United States. But the biggest shock that I had for the first time here when I came was basically the food. When I tried some chicken, I was really surprised to see that here people put sugar in chicken. And when I tried it, when I saw it, because in my country we used to have chicken everywhere, I was really happy because I'm going to have my first chicken in the US. When I tasted it, it was sugar. I said, oh my God, why sugar in chicken?
There was one, I'm trying to remember, but the one at the top of my head is zebra crossing. It's very weird. I don't know why that is weird, but I observed that even if I know about zebra crossing, whenever I try to cross the road and I saw cars coming, I would step back and they would wait. I'm like, oh, they wait. So it was kind of a shock. It took me a while to get used to that.
The cheese. They put cheese in everything. Yeah, it's the food, definitely.
Mandela Washington Fellow speaking to VOA's Anthony Labruto about some of the culture shocks they dealt with during their time in the United States. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.